Okay,
All right, I'll call to order the Town Board and Planning Commission public hearing Monday, January 10th, 2022 at 6:34 PM at the Richard Young Fire Station. Roll call, please.
Supervisor Brum,
Here.
Supervisor Moonen,
Here.
Supervisor Plotecker. Here. Supervisor Beal. Here. Chairman Osterman is present on Zoom. Commissioner Mouche,
Here.
Commissioner Nelson, Commissioner Everly,
Here.
Commissioner Olhafen,
Here.
Attorney Macy, Administrator Nicholas, and Clerk Capazzo to record the minutes.
Thank you. We'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, notice is hereby given that a joint public hearing will be held by the Lisbon Town Board and the Planning Commission on Monday, January 10th, 2022 at 6:30 PM at the Richard Young Memorial Fire Station to solicit public comments on the following. Public hearing number 1, consideration of a proposed update to the Lisbon Comprehensive Development Plan 2035 as required under Wisconsin State Statute 66-1001. The plan has been revised to reflect an updated population and housing data, existing development patterns, opportunities for infill residential development, and general development trends. All right. At this time, we'll open the public hearing.
Mr. Chairman, I might recommend that we have the planner give us some background on this matter.
Thank you.
Do you mind if I bring it down to the table?
That's fine, you just gotta look fine.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Sean Malarkey. I'm with FOF. I've been working on the comprehensive plan with Warren Sumwalt. Also with FOF is here with me tonight. This is I think this is the 4th meeting we've been in front of at least the Plan Commission on updating the comprehensive plan. We were tasked earlier in the year with doing an update to the plan to accomplish a number of things. One of which was to look at the general development trends, the recent development trends, recent population projections, update the plan according to that. Take a look at the land use plan map in terms of land that has already been developed, but was planned for a category that didn't make any sense, meaning there's a lot of land that was planned for agricultural and rural land, but it was already developed in the subdivisions. So that had to be updated with a corresponding category that matched the development density pattern. There's also been other minor industrial developments or commercial developments that have happened that wasn't lockstep with the comprehensive plan. So that's been updated. We've also looked at areas that just made sense from a general infill development pattern based on surrounding developments. And so that was the gist of it. It's sort of a tuning up of the plan in anticipation for a potential incorporation effort by the town. So this will lend itself to that effort because it reflects the sort of best practices and taking a look at the reality of the way the land uses are laid out in the town. We just generally in terms of demographics and housing projections from 2000 to 2010, the town grew by about 8.5%. From 2010 to 2020, the town grew by another 6.5%. And then from 2020 to the year 2040, we're expected to grow another 10% in that period of time. Essentially, that equates to about 700 additional housing units over the next 20 years. And so we need to make sure that there's also enough land in various areas throughout the town to accommodate that future housing as well. One piece of information that's interesting is that the town itself is obviously surrounded by many municipalities, including, Sussex, which takes up a good portion of the interior of the village, but a good over 50% of the town is already used up by environmental areas, corridors, wetlands, floodplains, rights of way, quarrying, extractive uses, and recreational uses. And so that only leaves 50% of the town for development, much of which is already developed with residential. So there isn't a ton of land left for future development. With that said, the plan does still envision areas for ag and rural use, particularly the northwest quadrant or the corner, and then the northeast corner as well. As part of the process, we did meet with county staff to talk about land uses because, as you know, once we change the comprehensive plan in the town, Waukesha County staff also would be asking them to make corresponding changes to their county comprehensive development plan, since they do review rezonings, subdivision plats and the like. And so we need to be in lockstep with their plan, or they need to be in lockstep with our plan. So for developments to move forward for the process. So if this gets approved, and I should mention that the Plan Commission did recommend approval of the plan at the December Plan Commission meeting. Tonight, we're looking at it from a board perspective, a public hearing perspective. Whether or not the board acts on this tonight or not, the adoption would be through an ordinance, which is required by state statutes. That's the law. So again, we met with county staff on October 26th. We had a public information meeting with property owners. They got direct mail. So I should say, in terms of the plan itself, the plan map, we identified areas where we were changing the plan, but land is already developed. It didn't really matter. It was just getting it to match up to what's already on the ground. And then there's areas where we're changing the plan that still has development potential. And so those property owners got mailed individually to come out to meet with us. And we had a good turnout that night. It was a very positive meeting. There was a couple of minor changes that we made to the plan following the meeting, but essentially everyone whose land was going to change was invited to come and speak. And so many did. Other changes we made to the plan had to do with general language regarding rural character. The town's plan is a component. It's within the framework of the county's development plan. And so it's written as a whole for the county as a whole. And so it really heavily focuses on rural development and preservation of rural development. While that's still important in certain areas of the town, it shouldn't be a focus necessarily. It shouldn't be the main driver behind what you envision for land uses. And so some of that language was softened to preservation of character in the town, or the certain character, but the focus on rural character was downplayed and softened a bit. We also took a look at some of the housing policies that the county's adopted from Southeastern Wisconsin Regional Plan Commission's Vision 2020. So housing policies for the county as a whole, not necessarily as they apply to the town of Lisbon, but again, we are within the county's framework. So we went ahead and added those policies as well. And those were discussed at the last months in December, the Plan Commission meeting. And then we also took a look at the land use definition for mixed use. As you know, the town and hopefully the village is planning a mixed use center on 164, sort of the nucleus of the town, and the village is planned for that area. So we looked at tuning up the definition of mixed use for what that meant for the town village center, eliminating industrial uses, contractor uses, warehousing unit uses. So it's sort of focused on commercial, retail, service-oriented uses, housing, multifamily housing, that kind of thing. So that's the gist of where we stand from a framework. If you'd like, I can quickly go through the map and just touch on a couple of areas and things we looked at. It's up to you. Would you like me to do that? Sure. So Lisa, can I just take control of share my screen?
Perfect.
Okay, so this is the town's recommended land use plan, future land use map. And I'm not going to go over everything, but I just want to give you kind of a flavor of what's been changed. As I mentioned in the map, there's a couple of different, we broke it up into two categories. The pink areas, highlighted in pink, are areas that are changing, but they're changing to a category that reflects the existing development pattern. So nothing has changed in terms of development potential there. And then the blue areas are areas that are changed to something more dense or different than what was there before. And so a lot of these areas were previously planned for the rural ag category, and they're going to be planned as something a little more dense to match with surrounding development patterns. So a lot of that took place around in the southwest quadrant of the town, around the Arrowhead Highlands development. A lot of the areas designated as reserve for future development. There's been some past approvals that have taken place, but the land use plan didn't reflect that. And so we've changed it to low density residential, which is compatible with some of the existing development surroundings. And then, so that's represented by the two. The threes that are a little bit further out is suburban density residential, which is 1.5 to 2.9 acres per dwelling unit. And so it just expands out there. But we see this as, some of it is ag clearly now, but these are very reasonable places to put future residential development. As you get further north, we've recognized some smaller areas as you go north to suburban density residential as well. I'm just going to touch on some of the blue areas, since the pink areas really just reflect existing reality. East of Lake 5 Road, east of the Twin Pine Farm development, or southeast of that, we did see that as also buffered on the east by environmental corridor, has an opportunity to develop as suburban density as well. So potentially a little bit less dense than the Twin Pine development to the west of Lake 5, but certainly has development potential there. As I mentioned before, the northwest corner of the town, all this white area has been planned for ag and rural land, and we didn't change that except to recognize a couple of small lots that have already been developed. This is the area that at one point in time was planned for an ag enterprise area as part of the county's farmland preservation plan applied. And so that's not necessarily planned for an ag enterprise area anymore, but it is large contiguous parcels of land that there's some value in long-term agricultural use there. I should mention that, for instance, along Plainview Road, there are areas that were planned for low density residential on the north side of the road that we are reverting back to the rural and ag land, only because these lots are such that the size is 5 acres or greater or thereabouts, and they really can't be split up or divided based on the existing development pattern. So they're not likely to get any more dense anyways. So we saw that as a good opportunity just to keep it as ag rural land. It's not to say at some point in time, if someone would aggregate some of those parcels, it would have a possibility for redevelopment, but it would take some effort. And then at that time, they'd come forward and ask for a change to the comprehensive plan. Looking at the northeast quadrant of the town, again, we left a lot of the ag rural lands that are in the very northeast corner, south of Kew, so just south of Richfield, west of Menominee Falls. As you get further south, though, there are some existing subdivisions and developments that were built. And so those sort of fit the existing pattern of the suburban density 2, which is the 3 acres to 5 acre development pattern. And so we just infilled a lot of that land to match some of that existing development pattern. As you get south then of that sort of remains as rural and ag, and then you see the environmental corridors coming through there. And then just north of the rolling, I think this is the Rolling Hills subdivision and the Plainview subdivision. A lot of those roads are intended to, at least a few of them intended to extend into the lands further north. And so those have been changed from rural ag to suburban density as well to recognize some of that extension of development. Again, there's some minor areas like the industrial park that were planned as industrial with some environmental lands that were part of that. And then so that got changed to all industrial to recognize that. some of the school lands on Silver Spring Road were changed from industrial to public institutional, governmental, to recognize the school. And then finally, just north of Lisbon Road, east of the existing quarry in the village of Sussex, those lands that were previously planned as mixed use have been changed to be planned for quarrying use. There was a public hearing last week on this in terms of a rezone for some of this, in terms of rezoning the land and some changes to the code. And so this goes hand in hand with some of those changes as well. So in a nutshell, if you take a look and step back, there aren't too many areas that were changed. Most of the areas that were changed just recognized existing development patterns, and the rest looked at infill opportunities. So that's all I have as an overview. I guess I'll just close with this, is that the scope of this change to the plan was fairly limited. It wasn't a comprehensive overhaul of the entire plan. I guess if and when Lisbon becomes a village in the future, we would be looking at updating the comprehensive plan from a village standpoint at that point in time, potentially breaking out of the county's framework, because the county's plan is written for the county as a whole and not specifically for the town of Lisbon. So those are things we'd look toward in the future. Thank you.
All right. At this time, we would take public comment. If you do have a public comment, please stand to the podium, name and address.
My name is John Radmer. I live at W220 and 5229 Town Line Road. And I just had a couple comments about the quarry proposal. In 2001, my wife and I, Jody and I, built our forever home there. And we pretty much had everything, our whole life is put into this place. Every year we did a little upgrade and really didn't feel guilty about it, because this was our forever home and we're planning on being there until we die. And we're just afraid that the quarry is really going to take away all the pleasure and that we have in there, with issues of dust, noise, increased traffic, increased risk of damage to our home and property. And just seems like they're asking us to give, and give. And what's the upside for the residents? And there is no upside for us. Just decreased property value. There are other things. We are on Town Line Road, and there's a culvert going under from Virginia Lane and Menominee Falls that brings a lot of rain and flood water. And I have it so it goes away from the house and it runs back into the farm field. And that's right where they're planning on putting a big berm. So I'm just worried about water coming back into my property. And it'll, like I say, it'll probably just be running back into our property. And closing, I just want to say that when we purchased the land in 1996, we had a vision of the future, retiring there, spending time outside, walking through the woods and enjoying the farmland and the peaceful serenity of the property. And if this quarry issue everything is passed, I just think that the last 26 years of my life putting into that house has just been wasted. And I'm just hopeful that the board will realize that in the best interests of the town of Lisbon citizens, that you should take care of us. We don't want to quarry there. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional comments on the comprehensive development plan?
Hi, Sherry Howard, N73 West 25201 Howard Lane, Lisbon. I just have a couple of questions on the proposed amendments to the comprehensive development plan. With regard to Chapter 5, housing element, and Chapter 9, implementation and intergovernmental cooperation, there are sections entitled regional housing plan recommendations. These are from a guidance document prepared for Waukesha County, not a study done for Lisbon, nor a document approved or adopted by Lisbon. And these sections should not be included verbatim or incorporated into the Lisbon Comprehensive Development Plan. If Lisbon desires to use the Waukesha County document as guidance for future development, language can certainly be included in chapter 5 and 7 indicating that, but the actual language from guidance document that was not prepared for the town should not be included in Lisbon's comprehensive development plan. Second, with regard to Exhibit B, recommended land use plan for Town of Lisbon 2035, there's language that's been added to the bottom of that exhibit, areas designated as other open lands to be preserved, not found to be encumbered by wetlands, floodplains, or soil constraints through updated data may be considered under the adjacent land use plan category or categories. That language should not be included on that exhibit. Consideration of development in those areas designated as other lands, open lands to be preserved, should be left to the discretion of the Plan Commission and Board on a case-by-case basis with extreme caution. These lands were designated as such due to extreme adverse environmental conditions, in particular high groundwater, which this town has a ton of, that would severely limit development and potentially cause adverse damage to neighboring properties. So I asked the Plan Commission and the Board to take my comments into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mark Schmidt, W220N5259 Town Line Road. Just a question for clarification of definition of one of the things that was shown on the map this evening. Could you please explain what the conditions are based off of the land designated as isolation natural resource area? I believe it's green with the check boxes through it. Runs through my property at W220N5259 through the middle of the property, and I'm wondering what the restrictions, conditions, long-term maintenance of that particular designation is, or is that just a term? And it's also designated on Sussex's long-term plan. Is it being counted as two different things? Is it conserved that way? Sussex had it in their plan, I believe, a year or so ago. It's exactly the same designation on their plan in Town of Lisbon property. So it would be the, yep, that's correct. That is the exact one. And mine would be the central property on there, so it runs about directly through the middle of the property. Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, anyone else for comment?
Anyone on Zoom who'd like to speak, please use the raise hand function. I've got Lisa Otis on Zoom.
All right, we'll take Ms. Otis, if you would state your name and address.
Yes, Lisa Otis, W220N9359 Town Line Road. I have a number of thoughts, comments, and since everyone took such a short time, I might take a little longer. Just warning you. I'm happy to see that there are still lands, environmentally sensitive lands that are being maintained. I have a couple of questions. Is this, have we incorporated the 2020 census results into these projections? Because I know that was a big thing that we were waiting for before introducing these changes. So I'm not sure if was that incorporated?
The process is to answer the questions when all the people are done.
Right. No open discussion. So, okay, that would be a question. Did we incorporate 2020 census figures? Another question is, or just a thought was, well, question, I'll go to that first. So there have been some numbers talked about, and actually Sean mentioned it as well. The land that is developable and the land that already has been. I've heard some different percentage numbers, like what exactly are we looking at as far as a percentage of land with the new plan, the new zone map, that would be developed? And does that also satisfy incorporation requirements? So curious on that. I wanted to say that, yes, there were, this was on the Plan Commission's agenda for a number of months. Unfortunately, it was always the last item. And some of those meetings went very long, as a few of us know, lots of us know, we were here till 10:30, 11 o'clock sometimes. But I feel like there wasn't a lot of open discussion because it was the last agenda item. Everyone was tired and often it was tabled. So I would hope that we could have it be a more productive, purposefully productive topic on future agendas for Plan Commission, for board, because it's really an important thing, as we all know. I have a question which I've raised before and I have not gotten an answer. This has to do looking more specifically at some of the CUPs, these conditional use permits that have been requested. Part of the language that I keep seeing is that natural wetlands will be filled in to create artificial wetlands. I don't understand why we would do that, why that would be an acceptable part of a plan. It seems counterproductive. It seems like it would incur more expense. And I don't see why we would do that. Who's better at creating wetlands than Mother Nature? And why would we change that? Is it, my brain goes to, is it done so that unbuildable land can now be buildable? I feel like there's a problem with that as far as the protection of our natural wetlands and native areas in general. As I said, I feel like a lot of the green space is protected, but I also agree with Sherry about the other open lands to be protected. I don't think that should be considered to be rezoned into, any kind of rural development, anything else other than ag or conservancy or upland corridor. I feel like that was the original intent of having those other lands that should be protected when we originally created the plan use document, the comprehensive plan. And a lot of those areas butt up against lands that are protected right now, conservancy lands, upper, lower corridor lands. And so I feel like we're just kind of encroaching on those areas by allowing development, possible development of those lands. And again, this goes back to my questions about, how much do we really need to develop? Because I know a big goal is for incorporation. Are we getting there? Are we overstepping that amount? I guess that the other comments I've had, and I've stated them before, I object to rezoning of any of the following zoned areas: primary environmental corridors, secondary environmental corridors, isolated natural resource area, and we talked about the other lands that I would object to rezoning those. I just feel like the reason I moved out here, I'm just going to throw on my camera because I like to be visible. The reason that I moved here 25 years ago was because I wanted to be in a more natural area with open lands, with native habitats. I live in the northeast corner, and on my property, this summer, every day I saw great blue herons fly across. I have seen eagles fly across my land. I have a lot of wildlife in my yard. There's a lot of wildlife in that area. I feel like when you look at the upper Northwest and just the kind of the corridor that is there of conservancy land is so important. Corridors of this type of land is one of our big hopes and ability to perhaps control climate change better, to continue to support pollinators, birds, our native fauna and flora. So they're very important to me, and they should be important to everyone else. It's a great resource, natural resource that the town has. And I feel like that it may be a little bit underappreciated in the face of trying to develop as much land as what is developable. So my second comment is that could we strive for a balance? When we do upset an area, we disturb an area, there's a subdivision built, the quick trip is going to be built, the quarry is going to happen. When we disturb those lands, we create those berms, we should be requiring those developers to plant native plants. And Mike Merrick blew that off, and so did the Plan Commission at the last meeting, as being, it's not feasible, you have to do burns, and we don't want to do it. And that's a poor excuse for not seriously considering this. I'm part of an organization, Wild Ones Native Landscapers. We work with citizens, yards, businesses to try to promote the use of native plants. We help to educate. And so we're not the only organization that does that. So if there's a question about, well, how do we do that? You know, look at Lisbon Community Park. That prairie has been replanted up on the to the, what would that be, past the ball diamonds and the playgrounds and things. There's a beautiful prairie area. It's been burned, it's been planted, plants have been found, and they've been labeled. We've worked with the town on removing invasive plants. So those things are possible, and they're real things that I feel we should look at. If we're taking away those things with developments, let's at least put some of it back. Let's try to reestablish some of that. And in the big picture, once those native plants establish, just like any perennials, trees, shrubs, you know, you help them along for a year or two, but then once they're there, the maintenance is very, very small. And so I feel that this is the person that, you know, the group that is petitioned for the expanded quarry property, you know, at least they showed a plan like that, as did the Bossies. You know, they showed replanting useful crop plants, lavender and sunflowers. So I hope we can maybe work together and just make that will just help to enhance the reason that people come here and the reason that people stay, because there's a lot of natural, healthy land within our borders. So having said that, I feel I do want to formally object to any high and medium density residential zoning and developments, as well as those other open lands to protect. I'm in favor of, if you know we're moving ahead with development, you know, low density to a careful minimum, and R1 and R2 categories. I feel those are more compatible with the way that Lisbon is developed right now, with the characteristics we have. And then there is also this, you know, infill registration, which has to do with other lands that should be protected. It's kind of a weird, I didn't know what it meant, so I looked it up. So those are the things that the things that I feel about, but I feel big picture that we can work together and we can preserve the good things and do what we need to get in for the incorporation, but let's do it reasonably. Let's do it cautiously. And hopefully our comments at these public hearings are not just formalities, because you have to have public hearings, but that we actually work together on these things, because a lot of people have a lot of great ideas. So thank you very much for the time.
Thank you, Ms. Otis. Elise, is there any more Zoom participants?
We do. I've got an Andrew John on Zoom.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Great.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Okay, my name's Andrew John, John is the last name. Address W218 N5426 Taylor's Woods Drive, Menominee Falls. Just Taylor's Woods Drive, of course, is parallel to Town Line Road in Taylor's Woods subdivision. I would like to voice my opposition to allowing Land and Stone Products to put a quarry in the East Quarry area along Lisbon Road. There are a lot of things that I find concerning about that quarry being there. I was at the meeting on the 6th, sat through and listened to a lot of things that were said. Some of the things that I wanted to address was, first of all, there were some points made by someone, a speaker for Land and Stone Products, saying that this was not essentially going to affect property values. I think intuitively, we can say that's definitely open to debate, and I would disagree with that. First of all, I think any of you who are sitting there would be of the same position I am. Would you rather have a house near a quarry or not near a quarry? Would you rather listen to the sound of machinery, added truck traffic, the sound of blasting, or would you not? And I believe any person in this room would say, yeah, I'd rather not have any of those things. And if you don't want to have those things, and you could get a house where you couldn't get those things, that would obviously mean a house where you have all those things is going to be worth less because the demand would be less. Is this something that the town of Lisbon needs? I don't believe so. Is it something that's beneficial to the town of Lisbon? I don't believe that it is either. Does our society as a whole, the community, our country, whatever, need that particular quarry? I would say no. You don't, unlike a point was made, well, it's like a landfill. You know, no one wants to live by a landfill, but we need landfills. Yes, we need, but do we need this particular quarry? And the answer is no. It's not a resource, which is a rare resource. There are quarries all over our nation that can supply these things. I understand that we're talking about being able to have it nearby. There are all kinds of quarries in this area. You know, a point was made about, well, this is, right now it's farmland. And he tried to, one speaker from Land and Stone Products, you know, made the inference that there's something bad about farmland because it's an ecological desert. And in the sense that there's a lack of biodiversity, yes, you could call it a desert. Farmland is necessary. You might say farmland is more necessary to our society than a quarry is. And I think it's really a disservice to farmers to say, oh, this is, inference being that this is bad. We're taking a bad land use and making a good land use. That was the inference I got from that. It being farmland is a good thing in itself. It's also the fact that once that quarry is there and they start quarrying that area, that's all that is ever going to be, is a quarry for decades and decades and decades until finally there's some reclamation done on it. That the land will never be able to be used for residential area or any other use. And for those points, those are the only points I wanted to make, but I wanted to voice my opposition. Obviously, I'm not a resident of your town, but I'm right next to where this is going to be happening, and I'm concerned about it, and I do oppose it. I'm done.
Thank you. Anyone else on Zoom?
Got a James Davidson on Zoom.
Mr. Davidson, please state your name and your address.
Yeah, hi, this is James Davidson. I live at N53W21948 Redbud Lane, Menominee Falls. Again, we are in the same subdivision as Andrew just kind of said, Taylor's Woods. We are right opposite town line. So we are your neighbors. I joined the last planning committee meeting on the 6th, and I would, again, I put this in email today, but I would also like to kind of just say this for the record. We strongly oppose the quarry expansion by Land and Stone Inc. And I represent a number of our homeowners in Taylor's Woods subdivision, so about 140 homeowners in general. It directly faces town line, and actually our subdivision is elevated across from town line. So we heard about some planning provisions by the quarry to try to, deaden the sound with berms. I think a lot of our residents would be directly impacted by that blasting. Obviously last week we had kind of one vision for the future from Hans as he kind of presented his plan for expansion to what seemed like a full room of his own employees, suppliers, businesses, and lawyers. I feel that homeowners, both in the town of Lisbon as well as Menominee Falls, were not really informed sufficiently of this expansion. It's great to see some other folks from Taylor's Woods on the call today, but we didn't see a lot of people really with the ability to kind of get the vote out. And subsequently, we only had about 6 people at that meeting. Some of us attended in person, some of us virtual. I would like to ask the board, as you consider this expansion, there are a few things of why I think you should oppose this expansion. So number one, we weren't notified sufficiently. I think if you gave the homeowners some kind of a referendum or notified them on this, I think you would say for the vast majority of us, other than the ones that are not employed by Land and Stone Inc., we would oppose this. Number two, I agree with the comments by one of my homeowners here in Taylor's Woods. Property values will be impacted, and many folks who are moving into this area have bought properties, paid high taxes, paid high cost for the land and the homes around them, and they're definitely going to be impacted when a quarry moves right into their backyard. Number three, we saw some presentation from Hans about what might happen in the future with the quarry, and they'll fill them in and make them, lakes, and they'll have wonderful landscaping. But let's be honest, anyone who drives by the quarries right now, they're an eyesore. Whenever I drive by the Hallquest or the Sussex Quarry, they're a massive hole in the ground, and it really takes away from the natural beauty of the area that we're in. Number four, noise. The existing explosions are loud. We heard from homeowners last week about the noise, the cracks, their children that are impacted. They've had, guests over that thought, from California that thought it was an earthquake. So, and that currently is when the quarry is 1.4 miles from my home. This would bring it to within like 0.2 miles of my house. So that's really going to impact our quality of life as residents of this area. My fifth point is a lot of the presentation last week was about Hans and his family and the generations that have owned this, and quarries have always been here. And I would say, do we need to let our past define our future? To me, expanding the quarry is short-sighted. It will detract from future subdivision development and businesses who don't want the noise, rock debris, dust, or eyesore of a quarry in their backyard. Number six, we recognize that, there's tax base and revenue growth that you're considering here as a board. And you can make tax from businesses. You can also make that from current and future constituents for the homeowners that actually pay for the services needed within our community. And we think that's only one way to pay for things, right? So if you think of the business, you can also think of the homeowners and the subdivisions you might, push out of the area if you kind of put this quarry in the backyard. So I have notified our officials in Menominee Falls of this, and we plan to lobby a response and opposition from our side. And as you think about this tonight, I would ask you to please not let the past, the quarries, dictate the future and vote against this expansion. Thanks for listening.
All right, thank you. Anyone else on Zoom?
I've got a Matt Frankovis on Zoom.
Mr. Francois?
Hi, thank you. Yes, Matt Frankovis, N55 W21724 Adamdale Drive. I'm a resident of Taylor's Woods. I was able to watch some of the YouTube video that was posted from the recent meeting from Hans's presentation. It seems as though he runs a wonderful operation. However, nobody wants a quarry in their backyard. Taylor's Woods, just the neighborhood of Taylor's Woods contributes over $1 million a year in property taxes. A lot of that goes to support the Hamilton School District that we have in common with Lisbon, among other municipalities. A quarry, like others have said, it's sure to reduce property values for Taylor's Woods, the other neighborhoods that are nearby the proposed expansion, and any future residential areas nearby. When you look at descriptions of homes and you're thinking about buying them, nobody says, there's a wonderful quarry in my backyard. That's just not something that will attract someone to that area. Given all the neighborhoods popping up in the area, we're aware that additional commercial development will be needed to support homeowners. A quarry doesn't do that. If planning were to commence from scratch, a quarry would be located in a more isolated area, not in a residential area. Expanding a quarry that's located next to neighborhoods that have existed for decades, that's a mistake. I think if you put it to a vote amongst town residents, it would surely fail. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Any more on Zoom?
No other hands raised on Zoom.
All right.
My name is Hans Dawson with Land and Stone Products. Address is N52W23436 Lisbon Road in Lisbon. So wanted to not re-give my entire presentation. I'm sorry, a little too tall. Wanted to not give my entire presentation I did on Thursday, but just wanted to add a little bit of background to some, in particular, the concerns about property values and as you guys are considering the smart growth plan, the compatibility of homes and quarries. Today I looked up the aerial photograph of the entire southeastern Lisbon from 1941, and then I compared it with 2020. And what you'll see in 1941 is in the entire southeastern region of Lisbon, about a dozen farm homes, 4 quarries, some roads, and a railroad. And then if you just click and then you overlay the 2020, you will see it completely surrounded by residences. And we think that that's pretty indicative of the fact that people aren't opposed to living next to a quarry, because the quarries have been there, like we said on Thursday, for about 100 years now, and homes have kept adding and adding to the area. Beyond that, we did a pretty extensive study. Mark presented some generic and nationwide data, but we actually studied 2 areas in Lisbon, property values. So we studied the homes on the Bonnywell and Town Line Road, their value history using sales data, using GIS data from the county, and then also Zillow estimates. Then we compared that with a subdivision on north central part of town called Wooded Ridge Trail. And we looked at the valuation data over a 3-year period and a 15-year period. And interestingly, we looked at 31 properties on the southeast part of town and 20 on the north part of town. The properties over by our quarry in the last 3 years have increased 17%. And in the last 15 years have increased 48% on average of their value. In the Wooded Ridge Trail, which is on the other side of town, not near our quarry, on the 3-year change, they experienced a 14% increase in value and a 49% increase in value on 15 years. And I bring that data to show with actual sales data, hard data, and not anecdote, that the quarries have, from what we can tell, no effect on the impact of property values. I know that that's a little counterintuitive, and maybe some of our neighbors might not agree, but I think the fact that these houses have risen, that they've been added to our community, I think speaks an awful lot to the fact that Lisbon's a great place to live and people want to live here, and that our quarries, we do the best we can to be compatible uses. And then just last, I just want to remind about the timeline of our plan, that we are a generation or 2 out from actually getting to this area, so people have time to adjust and we have time to construct our large berm as a buffer. And then of course, any neighbor that wants to reach out to me directly, please feel free to call our main line. It's the numbers on the internet, but I'm happy to meet with any neighbor anytime to discuss any concerns. So thank you for the time this evening.
Thank you. Anyone else for comment? One more opportunity. Anyone for comment? All right. I guess at this time we could have Mr. Malarkey address the comments that were made.
So I have a list of some of the comments. One question focused on the housing element. Information that was added to the plan, chapter 5 and chapter 9. Again, these were housing pieces from Southeastern Wisconsin Regional Plan Commission's Vision 2050 plan that were incorporated into the county's plan. And I guess the only thing I would say about that, we did discuss this a little bit last time, is that they are just guidelines. And so they're guidelines for the county, they're guidelines for Sewer Pack, and they're also guidelines in our plan. And the way these are introduced into the plan is it says the following regional housing plan recommendations are incorporated into the town comprehensive plan as guidelines for the county as a whole. And so they don't specifically apply to the town of Lisbon. These are things that we're encouraging for the county as a whole, whether it be the city of Waukesha, whether it be the village of Sussex, whether it be the city of Milwaukee, whatever they might be. We are just basically keeping in lockstep with the county's framework plan, because when the county updated their plan, I think this was done, I can't remember how many years, 2009. The town didn't update at the time because we didn't do a comprehensive plan. So we're just keeping in line with the county's framework. These aren't policies we're saying that are supposed to be incorporated into the town itself. It's just basically saying, hey, we agree with the county as a whole. This is what we support. In terms of the other open land to be preserved category, we haven't changed the locations of those on the map itself. And so those are reflected on the map. But the woman who pointed it out is correct. There is a clause on the plan that basically says that those areas found not to be encumbered by wetlands, floodplains, or soil constraints through updated data may be considered under the adjacent land use category or categories. So it's not a carte blanche to say, basically, hey, if you can prove there's no high groundwater there, there's no steep slopes there, there's no hydric soils there, whatever it might be, that you get to develop it. It's still a case-by-case basis that the Planning Commission, the board, can determine whether or not to allow development to expand that area based on the believability or the legwork that goes into presenting the evidence that it actually isn't a harm or a detriment to the environment. So if someone comes in and says, hey, there's nothing here, this is on the map, and those areas change all the time, just like the boundaries of wetlands change all the time. And that's part of the reason to have that in there, is that wetland boundaries change, and that's why you're required to basically get a wetland resurveyed every 5 years, because they either shrink or expand. And so the groundwater changes and the ground changes as well. And so that's all we're saying, is that, hey, these are they're important areas to preserve, but they may be considered depending on what evidence is presented. And so that's where the plan is coming from. There's a question about the 2020 census. We've included all the available information that's available now to date. Not all the information is available yet for a full-blown comprehensive plan, but in terms of population projections and housing projections, we took the latest and greatest that was available. It's not from the final counts of the census for localities, though. That would be the next plan, that the village, becoming a village, that would incorporate census data at that time. Let's see. There was a question about isolated natural resource area and what it meant on the back of one of the properties on Town Line Road. Essentially, the plan recognizes major environmental areas as primary environmental corridor, secondary corridor, and then natural resource areas. All those areas are determined and defined by Southeastern Wisconsin Regional Plan Commission. They're mapped, and they basically leave it up to the communities as to what to do with those areas. They recommend they're protected to some degree, and then the communities write guidelines and policies. Our policies are the same as Waukesha County's policies, basically, is that those areas are intended to be preserved and not developed. If your entire property is encumbered with environmental corridor, secondary corridor, or natural resource area, they allow some level of development if there's no other place to develop on your property for residential purposes with a maximum disturbance area. But the property, for instance, that is mentioned on Town Line Road, the back half of the property is isolated natural resource area. And so essentially what that means is it's protected. You can clear out invasive species and so on, but you can't clear cut it. You can't take out the native tree species. You can't grade and fill in there and so on. So that is consistent basically across the county. The natural resource area, what differentiates that from the environmental corridors is it's a smaller area. It's not as contiguous to larger areas. Basically it's a defined area that's much smaller and is disconnected, but still has something worth preserving. And a lot of times that's native tree species or steep slopes or those types of things. Let's see what else I got. There was questions about percentage of land to be developed. We do have calculations for land development. As I mentioned before, about half the town is in areas that are natural resource areas, rights of way, recreational, extractive, basically areas that won't be developed. So 50% of the town is developable. Of that, 32% is already developed. So essentially, about 82% of the town is either not developable or is already developed. So that leaves about 18% to be developed. And so of that 18% to be developed, there's a portion that's set aside for ag and rural lands. And the remainder, which is about 15.8% of the town, is set aside, not currently developed, is set aside for future development. I think that's all I have for direct questions. I know there was a lot of questions and concerns about the quarry. There was concerns about wetland permits and fill permits, but that's not something that's addressed here as part of the comprehensive plan. So does anyone else have any questions or follow-up questions?
Questions from the commissioner board? All right. I guess it would be appropriate to close the public hearing at this time. We have one on Zoom. Please state your name and your address.
Lisa Otis on Zoom.
Yes, Lisa Otis, W220 and 9359 Town Line Road. So I'm sorry, Sean, are you referring? I had the question about, the plan to fill wetlands and create artificial wetlands. And I don't feel like that was addressed at all.
Yeah, I guess I closed my statements by saying that's not something that the plan really recognizes. The plan sets aside basically for environmental corridors and wetlands. It talks about the goal is to protect those. Obviously, limited development potential for certain reasons. As I mentioned, if a property is entirely encumbered by environmental corridor, we do allow some development of that for residential purposes, et cetera. But it doesn't address, as far as I know, trading off filling in wetlands for creation of new wetlands. It certainly isn't something that we were tasked with as part of this comprehensive plan, this minor comprehensive plan update. We have a note, obviously, of your concerns about that, but it wasn't something that we were asked to address.
Well, the plan is, part of the plan, a big part of it is to conserve wetlands. So I feel like there is a direct relationship there.
Yeah, there is a direct relationship, but we haven't changed any of the language that talks about preserving wetlands or environmental corridors. That still remains.
So who can I talk to about this? Because I've brought this up. This is like the third or fourth time. to understand what the process is, why it's being done, and how it fits with our land use plan, because to me, it feels like it doesn't. So if someone can tell me who I should talk to about that, I'd be happy to discuss
Well,
it. It's not an appropriate topic here.
The land use plan certainly should guide when people develop their property, what you look toward the plan to say, hey, what do we do with wetlands? Do we allow wetlands to be filled or not? Do we allow environmental corridors to be clear cut or not? So the plan does talk about wetlands. And so the plan commission and the board should certainly be following the directives of the plan. However, it's not always cut and dry, and I don't have it in, I don't know exact the section right now in terms of what it says, but there's always a little bit of wiggle room in there in terms of, as I mentioned, there's rationale for when environmental corridor can be developed. And there may be things in the plan that talk about where wetlands can be developed or traded off. I just don't know right now. And so that's something we can follow up with you on. We can
Yes.
work.
I think
through
the
Kathy
process
Nicholas
in
on
all of
that.
our communities is you go through the town administrator. You contact the town administrator. No one has the authority to contact the professional staff
Yeah,
directly
certainly.
unless you're willing to pay the bill. So please contact the town administrator to go through the process.
Yeah, and that's something we would be happy to work through Kathy on.
Sure, and Kathy and I have talked.
She asked who she should
about this.
contact. The answer to her question as to who
Is
she
Kathy,
should
absolutely.
contact is the town administrator.
Thank you.
Yep, and Kathy and I have had discussions, so Kathy, hopefully we could get together on this. But again, I feel it's gives a property, two houses down from mine, on the edge of conservancy land, upper lower corridor land, good chunk of that was filled in, and it's wetland, it was native woodland. And, I just heard gravel trucks after gravel trucks dumping in gravel to fill in order to build on that. So it's happening, and I feel like that area, that lot was not, that wetland area was not properly protected. So thank you for your comments.
All right, one more opportunity to check on Zoom.
See if there's anyone else in the hall who wishes to be heard then, if there's no one else in Zoom or any of your commissioners or board members.
Taking that direction, anyone?
Then it would be appropriate, Mr. Chairman, to close the public.
All right, at this time, we will close the public hearing and move for adjournment by planning commission. Made by Commissioner Everly and seconded by Commissioner Nelson. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Elise, do we have to do a reset on Zoom or anything? All right, at this time, 7:38 PM on the 10th of January, 2022, I'll call to order the town board meeting and roll call. Yeah, just to make sure everyone, I know we got people on Zoom.
Supervisor Braham,
Here.
Supervisor Moonen,
Here.
Supervisor Plotecker. Here. Supervisor Beal. Here. Chairman Osterman.
Here.
He's here on Zoom.
All right, citizen comment. We are open for that. Please approach the podium, state your name and address.
There we go. Ed Nelson, West 270, North 7531, Oakwood Court, Heartland. What a difference 3 or 4 days makes. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to be very quick and concise. I did give to you a flyer, some of you, and on behalf of the Park Committee, I would like to invite you to Winterfest, which is February 19th from 1 to 4 p.m., weather permitting. This is a great event that the Park Committee helps to publicize and promote Community Park, which of course is the largest park in our park system. There will be sleigh rides. We probably have one of the best sled hills in the area. There will be cross-country skiing. There will be stuff to eat, hot chocolate, etc., to keep people warm. I personally believed when we had our last park meeting that even though you have obviously Facebook, all types of social media, etc., it also helps to promote, advertise, and to invite personally people to make it just more fun and more human. So that again is February 19th from 1 to 4 p.m. at Community Park. And I hope to see many of you there. Weather permitting. Because last year, of course, we had to cancel because it was too cold. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. Anyone else for citizen comment? Anyone on Zoom?
No hands raised on Zoom.
Hearing no hands raised, we'll move on to the meeting minutes. Discussion and necessary action regarding approval of December 13th, 2021 town board minutes. Presented in our packet here. Does anyone have questions or would like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion, we approve the minutes for December 13th. I believe it should be 2021.
Correct. Anyone second?
Second.
Motion made by Supervisor Plotecker, seconded by Braham. Anyone have discussion on it? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Next is the accounts payable, authorized payment of the 12/22/2021 Falls Auto Parts bill in the amount of $26.52.
I make a motion, we approve the amount of $26.52 made out to Falls Auto Parts.
Motion made by Supervisor Beal. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Supervisor Plotecker. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0 with Chairman Osterman abstaining. Authorized payment of remaining 12/22/2021 check register in the amount of $100,848.42.
Our top expenses were municipal law and litigation group at $12,592.55. Verbecker for $10,924.50. Paul Pickler for $9,952.65. US Bank Corp., which is our credit card company, $9,494.79. And then Grota Appraisals for $9,450. I ask for your approval.
Is there a motion on this?
Move to approve.
Motion made by Chairman Osterman,
Second.
seconded by Supervisor Braun. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Next, authorize payment of the 1/6/2022 check register in the amount of $167,489.93.
Our 5 top expenses were waste management for $67,348.55. Premier building inspections for $29,761.09. Kunkel Engineering for $22,387 even. Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield, $12,010.49, and WCTC, $9,969.79.
Is there any motion on
Make a motion to pay the amount of $167,489.93 on the check register that she just itemized.
that? Motion made by Supervisor Braun,
I'll second it.
seconded by Supervisor Coltecker. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 And opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Announcements and correspondence. Parks Committee, Monday, January 17th, 6:30, here at the fire station. Sanitary and Sewer District, #1 Commission, Wednesday, January 19th, 6:30 PM, Town Hall. Next town board meeting will be Monday, January 24th, 6:30 PM at Town Hall. And Planning Commission will be held Thursday, February 6th, 6:30 PM at the Richard Young Fire Station. Any other announcements, correspondence?
I'll just note that you all received correspondence from resident Mark Schmidt that you should have on the table in front of you.
Knowledge it's received. Administrator report.
So we closed on the 4 acres with Polyak Trucking in December. The amount of money that we received from that sale reduced our balance that we paid for the land to $960,000. And with our March payment, that loan will be at $890,000. We had an ad put in for deputy treasurer that was out before Christmas. We received a couple resumes. We expect to be interviewing January 19th. The Department of Treasury came out with their final rule on the coronavirus local fiscal recovery funds. New rule widens some of the uses, and we need to obligate those funds by December 31st of '24 and spend all the funds by 12/31/26. So in the next year, we'll be discussing further use of those dollars, funds. We've been working, started working with for the audit in December, met with department heads. I met with the department heads to do a 2021 year in review. We went through what went well, what could do better in the future, and we set some goals for 2022. We finalized our transition to our new planners, and on 1/6, there was a hearing on the 301 agreement. Once the order is written, we will have 70 to 100 days to run a binding referendum for the 301 agreement with Sussex. Once the order is written, we'll bring it back to the board to set the date of the referendum. That's my report.
We got unfinished business. Discuss and necessary action regarding the 2022 Lake Country Municipal Court contract. This was tabled from November 22nd, 21.
Right, we brought this forward. You asked that Attorney Macy review it. He did go ahead and review it. We brought those comments back to the court, and in front of you, you have a memo on how they'd like to make some of those changes Some of them were typos, some of them they'd like to change in their next agreement. Just as a reminder, all the agreements have to be the same throughout all of the participants in the court. And so they thought that the next writing of the ordinance and the agreement, they would fix the suggested changes that our attorney brought to their attention.
So are we looking to approve the 2022 municipal contract?
Yes.
Does anyone have questions on it or would like to make a motion?
Seeing as we sent it to the attorney here, is the recommendation now that it is okay with the changes we made, or?
Well, the problem is they've already had it approved by everybody else and they all have to be identical. There are problems. They've acknowledged there are problems with the document and that they're going to deal with those problems going forward. And that's sort of the best we can say. They will need to be put into ordinance form though, because every one of them, so there is another document. It won't necessarily have to come back, but it has to be put in a form so that it can be codified and put in your code book.
Correct.
This is just the model, but certain things can't be fixed. They're going to have to work on them over the next year or so and come back with the next iteration to deal with them. I think, Kathy, they've indicated certain ones they don't have a problem with you fixing in this draft, but
Right.
a couple of the major ones, Mr. Supervisor, they just can't fix. They have a practice of allowing you to be a sort of member, and the statute doesn't allow for that. And that's you're there as a contract, but not a full member. And they've had this since day one. It's just no one's brought to their attention. The statute doesn't allow. So that's, but I don't think we're doing anything illegal. They understand the problem now and they're going to have to fix it. I've had conversations with Mr. Weimer, obviously, about this. And they're aware of it and they're going to do that.
All right, thank you, Mr. Macy. Do we have any motions to approve?
Would be a motion to approve, subject to the administrator making the changes that are authorized by the committee and putting it into final form for codification into your code.
So moved.
Instead of repeating that, I'll just make a motion. Oh, I'll be the second. Chairman Osterman made the motion. And I seconded. Anyone have a discussion on it? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 And opposed? Motion carries 5-0. New business, discussion and necessary action regarding paid time off.
So we worked on in June on the employee handbook. One of the things that is in the handbook is that the holidays are not considered part of the of their accumulated 40-hour weeks. Our plow drivers went out on 3 of our last holidays and plowed, and without them receiving being able to use the holiday toward their 40 hours, that they would not have any overtime incurred for that for the time that they put in, and they would like to use those 40 hours. So I'm bringing it back, looking at the handbook. Vacation and sick are already allowed for the 40 hours, but holiday specifically was exempt for that purpose. They're asking for to allow holiday hours to be used toward their 40-hour overtime accumulation, as well as be back paid an amount of $1,534 for the 27th, 31st, and January 1st.
All right, thank you. Just a question for staff. I know this is stating in here the plow drivers, but is there any other staff within the town that would have fallen into this?
No, a
unintended
40-hour
consequence?
week. I did ask one person that did some overtime, but it was after the time that she became salary. So it was after the 1st. 31st.
Fire department would,
This is for 40-hour work week.
yeah, but if you do, if you count that as hours worked, the fire department currently doesn't do that. And they wouldn't do it on the
Right.
FSLA stuff, but they would if you mandated them overtime. And they went over 204 hours in a 27-day work cycle.
Right,
Which
they get
happens
paid
really
out.
rarely.
They get paid out of their holidays, the end of the year.
If-
So if they work and they don't take holiday, they get paid out holidays. Whereas our 40-hour people, if they don't take their holiday, they lose their holiday.
You know, I'm just saying if your hours, if you take your holidays, those hours aren't necessarily physically worked, but if you were in a cycle that they came in and did overtime, just like the DPW guys, then those hours should count towards their overtime accruement.
Supervisor Brown, do you know that there's people in the fire department that would be included in this?
Not at this time. It happens so rarely because the actual FSLA overtime, that by law, that cannot occur to that. So no, it has not happened.
And this,
It's so rare.
and this change was specifically in the 40-hour employee benefits manual, not in the fire department LFDs.
So does this mean that full-time 40-hour weekly employees, if they're on vacation and they come back and they work an hour, they work say they take 4 days of vacation and then they work 1 day and they work 9 hours, that means they get
1
an hour
hour
of overtime?
1 hour of overtime, yes.
I don't like that.
Now, when you were just explaining, you said that all of it does already exist in the book except for holidays.
Right. In the book, it says it, in the manual, it specifically states that the only place it states that it does not occur is for holidays. It already occurs for
For
other
vacation
benefits,
and for
vacation,
sick.
It already says that they can
Yeah.
use vacation time?
Yeah.
Which is kind of common practice, I think.
And in your request, there are overtime comparisons of other municipalities and how they use sick, vacation, and holiday toward their 40. Some do, some don't, but majority does. That was the request of the Public Works Department.
Any other questions from the board?
I'm going to bring up the obvious question. Obviously, this wasn't noticed when they signed off on the handbook.
Right, they did read the handbook.
Right, and it wasn't noticed because it wasn't probably something that was considered important at the time, but now obviously they've been through it and it is. I am in favor of using the holiday pay, the holiday hours towards the 40. I do it at my job. I know it's not common in the public sector, but I think it's very common in the private sector. I will say I'm not the most hyped up about paying back pay, being the fact that this was signed off by everybody, even though I have been in favor of this, I'm going to say, but I'm not the most in favor of that at this point in time, just because this was all signed off on. But I'm not going to vote against it because of it, but I just think that there has to be some responsibility taken also on this. I know it's not going to be a popular thing to hear, but that is my feeling.
I also am under the impression that before the handbook got rewritten, that past practice in the town of Lisbon was to allow that to be.
That's correct.
So I mean,
That's
for
my
years,
understanding.
for years, they've been getting this. So we're kind of just going back to what they already had until the book got rewritten.
All right, anyone else have questions? So it looks like there's two parts for a requested motion. Does anyone want to make that at this time? I'll make a motion that holidays, I'll make a motion to remove the quote, holidays are not considered days worked as part of the overtime pay calculation, end quote, from the benefits manual, and to allow back pay for the hours worked on the observed holiday of December 27th and 31st, as well as January 1st, 2022, for snowplow drivers at the overtime cost of $1,500 and 34 and no cents.
I second it.
Motion made by Supervisor Moonen, seconded by Supervisor Braun. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And opposed? Motion carries 5-0. All right. Moving on with new business discussion, necessary action regarding garbage billing for model homes.
All right, so the way that I kind of laid out how we do garbage when we get a occupancy from the building inspector, we start up garbage for that household, but it's been regular practice here that the model homes are kind of kept aside and not started their garbage service. And I'd like to change that policy and have the occupancy trigger garbage service to be started for all new homes. And with that change, that we would send memo to our builders in the area or to let them know of the change.
All right. I was thinking this over to myself, and was there a problem that triggered this arising?
This discussion?
Yeah.
Yes. So what happens is we keep in a spreadsheet all the model homes, and we have people that are getting garbage picked up. When they move in and they don't contact us, we never charge them for the garbage until the day that they didn't get picked up, and they call us and say, we didn't get picked up. And we find out that they've been putting garbage out, the garbage men have been picking it up, and they haven't paid for it. So it's difficult to keep track. There's no way nothing that starts the garbage pickup and service until the new homeowner contacts us. So we either get calls angry from the homeowners saying that they are not getting garbage pickup and they should be getting garbage because they moved into their house last month and they haven't had any garbage, or those that have been missed after they've been not paying for garbage and suddenly the garbage men didn't drive up their driveway to pick it up. So also when we're putting that in a spreadsheet, there's always room for error, human error. And we might not bring that up into the area of the spreadsheet that we add that to the tax roll for the next year when we roll that garbage service onto their tax bill. So it's easier to miss this way. So the way that if all occupancy permits trigger the garbage service, it makes it consistent across the board and makes it much easier for the office and for us to make sure that service is being delivered when it's and paid for.
All All right, thank you for that background.
I have a quick question.
Mhm.
What about builders, when they have garbage out there, is that automatically picked up from the builders before, while they're working on the home? Because a lot of times there's garbage and paper and stuff out there. Who picks that up?
Well, I think the builder would normally pick up their own garbage until they get occupancy. Once they get occupancy and they put it out, it gets picked up by our garbage.
Okay. So we're not doing anything with that for model homes or anything?
Well, it's to add model homes, so as soon as they get occupancy, they automatically get garbage service as well. So they'll get a recycle bin to put their papers and such in.
So if it becomes a model home, then the builder is the one that pays for it at that time?
Right, and then they would just move that forward when they're in their settlement with the new buyer.
Okay, thank you.
Is that a cost that would come directly from the town, or is that something that would show up on their tax bill?
Well, as soon as occupancy happens, we give them an accounts receivable. And then they pay that. We automatically get billed as soon as we start them. The town gets billed as soon as we start them, and then we bill whoever the homeowner is at the time for that cost. And it's a prorated amount.
Sure. All right, anyone else have any questions? If not, we're looking for a motion on the item.
I make a motion that we add the garbage billing for model homes once they become occupancy permit.
Motion made by Supervisor Beal. Is there a second?
Second.
Supervisor Brahm, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 And opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Chairman, is it possible that we could move our comp plan forward so our planners can leave before we do our written comments for the intergovernmental agreement? Oh, sorry,
I
it is
think I
next.
have it.
It's in my packet, sorry.
Gotcha. All right, next item is discussion necessary action regarding proposed amendment to comprehensive land use plan. And Mr. Malarkey?
I don't have anything else to add. I kind of gave my summary as a precursor to the public hearing. Do you have any additional questions for me or anything you're not sure about?
I just, for some clarity, I think people don't maybe know the full process of why we're seeing this at this time. What does the timeline look for people to give further comments or questions?
Well, if you don't take action tonight, we certainly can leave it open as long as you want. However, we are sort of at the mercy of Waukesha County's timeline. And I think the deadline for applications for amendments is the end of the month. It's the end of the week. Now, I'm not sure if we talked to them or not. I know they have in the past allowed municipalities that are proposing amendments they would accept them at a later date, but I'm not sure how much later that would be possible. So if it's not approved tonight, for instance, and it has to be done by ordinance eventually, we'd want to, I guess, establish a timeline not to exceed a certain amount of time.
I did speak with Jason Booth at the county, and I had stated that we were doing the public hearing today and then looking at ordinance possibly at the January 24th meeting, and he did not have a problem with us meeting that timeline. As long as we give them the public comments from today's meeting and any concerns or changes from the comp plan that moving forward to him, they'll put that in their amendment that they're putting together.
So if the board chose not to take action tonight and wait till, you said that there was the 24th, when you have the ordinance in front of you, I assume that would be the plan. So that would be, so we could take questions and comments up until that point in time then.
The public hearing's closed. I would
Yeah.
recommend not, unless we have a public participation plan, or the state statute says otherwise.
Don't, not necessarily, but what if the board had additional questions for us?
Well, the problem is that if you start doing things, I mean, if they have questions or changes that have been raised as part of the public hearing, fine. But if you bring up something new, the public doesn't have a comment.
No, I know, but if a clarification, let's say they have time to, you know, to reflect on what was talked about tonight in terms of the public hearing and then come back and want clarification from us on something, would that be allowed?
Yes, as long as it's clarification on things that occurred at the public hearing or was discussed. at the
Sure.
public hearing. To open up new matters would be problems.
Thank you.
So we'd be looking at doing an ordinance at the following meeting. Unless you're ready to move forward on it tonight.
And I have to tell the board, as long as I'm here, as the supervisor
Yeah.
said, the ordinance says our boilerplate. If you're going to adopt it, the ordinance just says that it
For the state
iterates all the
statutes.
whereases of everything that had to be done statutorily to get us to this point. But it just says we hereby adopt the plan.
Right.
You know, so I don't want anybody to misled that there's anything in the ordinance. I have many communities who would adopt it, subject to the staff putting the ordinance in proper place and authorizing the chairman. I'm not saying you have to do that. I just don't want you to think that, you know, that the ordinance is going to have anything other than boilerplate in it, to be honest with you. And you should have seen and maybe received as part of your packet, the resolution from the Plan Commission. We use that as the guide for drafting the ordinance because that too contains all of the whereases and procedural steps that need to be shown in the ordinance. But I'm not telling you what to do. It's a policy decision as to what to do. If you need more research or need more time, you certainly can take it. But just not having the actual document in front of you would not necessarily be the reason to wait. Does that make sense? Is that, yeah, thank you.
So it could be approved tonight with us putting together the ordinance and you approving the chairman to sign that ordinance.
So we can just approve the amendments now.
And direct the staff to put, the ordinance would be to adopt the plan as presented and direct the staff to put an ordinance together consistent with the same and authorize the town chairman to sign that ordinance. And the staff is also going to make it subject to Sean and my review, of course. They've already told us that, so. And so if someone wants to make that motion, they could just say so moved. You don't have to repeat everything. Otherwise, you could make a motion to table the matter till the next week.
I'll say so moved.
I second.
What are we still moving? What?
There was a motion to approve the plan as
Okay,
submitted.
okay.
And directing the staff to put an ordinance together with the necessary language. The ordinance would be subject to Sean and my approval, and you'd be authorizing the town chairman to sign this.
So we have a motion on the floor from Supervisor Plotecker and seconded by Supervisor Beal. We have any other questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor
Aye.
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 and opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Discussion and review of written comments received regarding proposed intergovernmental agreement with Village of Sussex. Looks like we got a listing of multiple comments. Kathy, do you want to summarize that?
So we have a listing of comments that were given to all of you to review and these are the exact same ones that Sussex will be reviewing tomorrow. I'm going to check with each of you to make sure that you've read and reviewed each one of the comments and then ask if there's anything in the 307 agreement that you feel needs to be changed due to the written comment.
And for the state statute, we really do need to go through them very quickly. And Mr. Chairman, if you'd like, I can walk us through them, or we can have the administrator. There are two questions that have to be asked and put into the minutes. One is, have you reviewed the comment? And do you find in any way that the comment would require you to modify the 0307 agreement? So, and by nodding your heads or not objecting or saying something, the clerk would write that down as that you've read them. And if I say, has everybody read them? And has anyone not read them? I guess would be the way to say it. She could put down that you've all read them. And does anyone see any reason to modify the plan because of it? And if no one says, I think we need to modify the plan, and there may be tweaks that you want to make to the plan. You all have the plan, you've all worked on the plan long and hard. And so there may be something, and that's what the state requires us to do.
Kathy, you want to go ahead with that?
Okay, so Sam, is it Liebert?
Sam Liebert.
Liebert, have all of you,
First, Sam, I've got Sherry
have
Schmeckel
Sam.
first.
Sam is the clerk from Sussex.
oh, I'm sorry. So
Let's
It's
use
Sherry.
this list.
Sherry,
If
Okay.
you want to just write the list and then Lisa can put the check marks, yes, and
Okay.
no one had anything on everyone.
did everyone read Sherry Schmeckel?
Yes.
Yes.
And have you found anything that needed to be changed in our plan due to this comment?
No.
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 How about Kurt Hackbarth? Have you all read his comments?
Yes.
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 Joe?
Yes.
Do you see anything that needs to be changed due to his comments in the
No.
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 Daniel Bender? Have you all read Daniel Bender's comments?
Yes.
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 Did you find anything that needed to be changed due to his comments?
No.
No.
James Evans? Have you all read James Evans' comments?
Yes.
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 Do you feel that there's anything that needs to be changed in the agreement?
No.
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 He actually
Jerome?
supported it. so He didn't have any suggestions for change. He supported.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Jerome Gorski,
Yes.
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 you see anything that needed to be changed due to his comments?
No.
No.
John and Mary Bender, did you read their comments?
Yes.
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 Is there anything in their comments that you feel needs to be changed in the agreement?
No.
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 John and Cheryl, please, did you read the comments?
Yes.
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 Is there anything that needs to be changed due to the comments?
No.
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 John Anthony, have you read and reviewed the comments?
Yes.
Yes.
Is there anything that needs to be changed from the comment?
No.
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 Judith Montel,
Yes.
have you read,
Yes.
read their,
Yes.
Yes.
anything that needs to be changed in the from her comments?
No.
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 Is it Clevin?
Kelvin.
Cobbs? Kelvin? Cobbs? Have you read his comments?
Yes.
Yes.
Is there anything that needs to be changed from his, from his comments?
No.
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 Kristen? Dean? Have you read her comments?
Yes.
Anything that needs to be changed from her comments?
No.
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 Lisa Anthony, have you read her comments?
Yes.
Yes.
Is there anything that needs to be changed from the comments?
No.
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 Margaret Sutton, have you read her comments?
Yes.
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 Is there anything in her comments that you'd like to change in the agreement?
No.
No.
Michael and Nancy Tetzloff, have you read their comments?
Yes.
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 Is there anything that needs to be changed from their comments?
No.
No.
Ron Sather, have you
Yes.
read his comments?
Yes.
Yes.
Anything that needs to be changed from the comments?
No.
No.
Ryan Grove, have you read his comments?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Is there anything that needs to be changed in the comments?
No.
No.
Sherry Howard, have you read her comments?
Yes.
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 Is there anything that needs to be changed in the agreement due to her comments?
No.
No.
I think we missed one.
I'm missing Ryan Weister.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ryan Weister. Sorry. Have you read his comments?
Yes.
Yes.
Is there anything in his comments that needs to be changed in the agreement?
No.
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 Okay, you wanna go with this next one? Teresa
Safransky.
Safransky. Sarah, have you read her comments? Is there anything in her comments that need to be changed in the agreement?
No.
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 Tom and Joan Nowak, have you read their comments?
Yes.
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 Yeah, it's from Christian Jim again.
Oh,
Okay.
Got them?
okay, okay.
All right, anything that needs to be changed due to the comments that they made?
Can we accept this comment if it's third party?
It's a comment. You have to consider it.
It came to us.
Thank you.
That's all the comments I have.
Okay, I need to make a note on Margaret Sutton. We need to put an asterisk that it was on behalf of Gordon S. Rankin and Mahala E. Rankin. Again, a third party one, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
I noticed that I started to get lost and then I figured that out. So if we could just add the Rankin name to the master list,
Okay.
so there's no confusion. And
I will update the list.
what did we do? Because I didn't see the packet. You worked with Sam on that. What was done in regards to the comments made at the public hearing? Are these everyone who also spoke, is everyone who spoke at the public hearing included on this list?
They are not. These are written comments only. I do have the listing of all comments received as well as hard copies of anything that was turned in at the hearing. And those will be incorporated into the public hearing minutes.
Was there anything that the board, during the public hearing, anything that you heard during the public hearing that needed to change the border agreement?
No.
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 And she'll list all of the people that spoke at the public hearing in this final document.
Yes.
Spoke and then also gave written comment during that time. That's all I have, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So do we have to officially receive that then as a motion?
No, we just need the minutes to reflect that, that you have reviewed the comments, which you have, and so she'll do a summary of what you've just done here as reviewing the comments. And we'll be back with the final motion to adopt the plan at a later
On the
date.
24th.
Yeah, there's no motions that need to be taken in.
Thank you. Moving on, discussion of future incorporation efforts.
All right. So I don't know if we want to go through this today or if we want to bring this up at the next one. I just wanted to let you know that we have been working on on getting closer to that incorporation. Today, the decision on the comp plan will help us through that process as well. The next step that I have down is to send a notice of intention to incorporate. We send the notice out. At that point, we can start circulating within 10 to 20 days. We have to start our first circulation of a petition. We have to come up with a representative, one of our residents. It can be one of you, but we do need a representative to be on a petition. And then also an alternate that would speak for the petition as well. We have much of what is needed to go to the circuit court at this point. So once we have the petition, we'd like to get at least 100 signatures from that petition. As long as we start the petition the petition starts between 10 and 20 days, it can take us up to 6 months before we have to have it completed by 6 months or we start the petition over again. But we can bring it to the circuit court with the documents that are needed, showing our population and such, the facts that are needed. And then the circuit court at that point will review, make sure that we have our all of the required documents, and then they would approve that to go to the Department of Administration. So our first step here is to make the decision if we want to move forward, because the notice of intention has to be put in the paper before we start the process. We can wait, but we have at this point, I have a tentative timeline. And if we move forward on the notice of intention, and then we start circulating, or the petition starts circulating after the next meeting on the 24th, we have to file another note. We send it to the circuit court, and we have to mail notices to all the clerks around Lisbon of when the circuit court sets the hearing. And so that's the first step, is to set that hearing. And then they will listen to our petition, all of the documents that are required by the circuit court. They don't go in depth as DOA does on their review, but they do have a group of items that they have to make sure are included in the filing. So I believe we're in a place where we could start that process. If we work through the time frame, we could possibly get a incorporation referendum date set in February of 23. And then possibly our first election for village board would be April of 23. So it would, I was shooting for November, but our team doesn't know if we can get it done for a November referendum due to the fact that we have to wait for the circuit court, and we're kind of at we have to go by their timeline. It goes back to the circuit court twice. We start the process with the circuit court, they get it to DOA, DOA returns it to circuit court, and then the circuit court sets the referendum date. And that's that timing in circuit court is kind of, we're not sure how much time the circuit court will take. It doesn't give a specific timeline that they have to respond within so much time. Whereas DOA does have 180 days from decision fee being paid. So that's kind of our timeline. I'd like to get started if you feel we can find a representative and an alternate. We can start the process of notifying and then getting the petition moving at the end of this month.
If I could add, Kathy, a couple of things. One is obviously all the work that you've been doing and that Kathy's been monitoring, the comprehensive plan, the ordinance amendments, all the plats, everything. We're trying to get everything in proper
agreements.
order before we file. So there are some things that are in the works that have to be completed. So yeah, I'm sure everybody realizes that.
But the starting will give us, we still have enough time to.
Right, but all of
get
that will
that
be
document.
done in order to, as part of that timeline. So just so you know, we can't if we start the annexation timeline, we gotta finish all the stuff, other stuff timely also.
Right.
That was more my point.
Okay.
You know, and the 0307 agreement is an important part of that.
That's great.
Because, you know, without that, the state's gonna say, well, you haven't finished this. They want everything buttoned up before you get to this, to
Right.
the Department of
So,
Administration. So that was
right.
my point.
Mhm.
And so if anybody thinks any of that is, you know, you worked on you finished the comp plan tonight for the most part, and we anticipate finishing on the 24th with the 0307. The 0301 shouldn't be a hindrance, albeit that has to be closed up also. Kathy's taken that all into consideration as part of the timeline. I just want you to know that we can't continue, you can't table that stuff or it'll mess up the timeline. Is
Right.
that a fair way to say it?
That's correct. That's
So
correct.
it's just, there's a
This-
lot of pieces to this puzzle. Kathy met with our staff last week, with Attorney Riffle, who is, you know, as you well know, an expert in the state. He's done probably more incorporations than anyone in the state. And he has, you know, he's working on the plan and the strategies and things like that that need to be in place. I think you're gonna get to this. We need one more team member on
Right.
the team.
Yep. So next board meeting, I'm going to bring forward another team member, Christy DeMasters from Trilogy. She's going to help put all of the documents that we're gathering from our planner and our attorney and all the census data as we update all the documents that we need to. She would be the actual writer of the document. And she's done this before. She's worked with Stan before. She actually worked with us on our incorporation in the village of Waukesha as well, and and was very helpful with, so she's worked with both Sean and with Stan and myself. I think it's a great team effort but I will be bringing a document from her to see if the board would agree to bring her on as part of the team at the next board meeting.
And Mr. Riffle wanted me to make sure I told you all that it will save you a great deal of money to use
Yes.
her, because he's more than willing to do it, but he charges more than she does.
Yes.
He will be checking it all, but it's in part his recommendation that you bring her on board
Correct.
to
Save us
money.
some money. That's correct.
So do you need a motion tonight to move forward? No.
No. Oh, yes, yes, I do.
consensus.
I need an idea if you guys feel that you're ready for me to get started, because we have to get that notice of intention out before we can get the petition all written. We need to find the two people, who's going to be the representative, who wants to be the alternate, and get their contact information into this petition that has to go to the circuit court as well. So I would like a consensus on if you're willing for me to move forward on this.
Yes.
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 I most certainly am.
Okay,
Long time ago.
thank you. That's all I had for incorporation on you.
All right, discussion on offer to purchase received from Larry Kelly for a parcel
to
within
call.
Lisbon Business Park East.
That's my fault. I was supposed to call him after we got done. Shoot.
Do we want to wait for him or do we want to just proceed?
We can proceed into you want to go right into closed session? I'll call him and see if we have to go back into open session. He was going to explain to you what was going to,
How close is he?
about 20 minutes, he said. We can start on the other parts of, let's see if I even have.
Can we just get a staff presentation on this? I don't see. we
Sure.
should Hold
do
the
that.
meeting up for this.
Do we need to go into closed session?
We can have just a general overview and open.
Okay, so, Mr. Kelly's daughter is the dance instructor at Hamilton High School. She already owns she already owns a dance studio in the area, but is growing out of it.
Maybe I could make a suggestion.
Yes.
Could we're on Zoom, because as a courtesy, we did tell him we were gonna let him make this
I just have to
presentation, and
find it.
could we take
Okay.
a 5-minute recess just to have her call and see if he can call in on Zoom?
Yeah, we could do that.
Is everybody comfortable with that? Just
Sure.
To get, we're not gonna wait the 20 minutes for him to drive over here, in all due respect, but I think it would be as a courtesy, we could ask him if he'd be willing to call in on his phone or on Zoom. And we'll just take a short break. Lisa, go off the record.
Okay.
We'll go into recess. All right, we'll resume the town board meeting at 20:42 hours. We are in discussion on offer to purchase received from Larry Kelly for a parcel within Lisbon Business Park East. We have Mr. Kelly on Zoom, and he's wishing to present to the board. Go ahead, sir.
Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I can't hear you as much, so I'll try to do this the best I can. Well, this is different. It's nice that at least I'm warm. I appreciate you giving me a chance to address this thing, but I guess I'll start it out by introducing myself. Larry Kelly. Has to do with the property over in the development there. I think there's three things: vested, investing, and attitude is what I want to address tonight to you. In 1960, my parents moved out to the area and raised 9 boys. All of us went to Marcy School and then on to Hamilton. All went to Hamilton. Some were some of the first classes at Hamilton and the first graduating classes. I'm in the middle, so I was the first 6th grade at Templeton, go Trojans. I went to high school up at Hamilton, and from there went on to college. After I got back from college, I came back, was married, and bought a lot over in town of Lisbon and built a home, raised my 3 kids, 3 daughters. Oldest one, Katie, still all 3 of them are in the area. Katie is was with the fire department. I thought I heard Doug Brahm on there. Was he on? Was Doug Brahm on there at all?
Yes, he's here.
I saw him come in. Okay. He knows Katie. Katie's been in all right. It's hard to see with who's all there. But Katie's been involved with the community, was on the fire department. My youngest Michelle, she's still in the area. Her 5th grader was the first 5th grade over at Silver Spring. So we're well vested in the area, have been for 62 years now. So we've been in here a long time. But the reason I want to bring up today is the investment involves my middle daughter, Amy. Amy is my single daughter with 176 kids. I will explain that. Amy has always been our dancer, has been in dance her whole life. She's been doing that since she was little. She went to Hamilton, was on the dance team, went from there to Stevens Point, and was on their dance team for all 4 years she was there. As a senior, she came to me and said, "Dad, I think I know what I want to do." And what's that? I would like to open a dance studio. So I told her, I think that's great. I also think you should go work for one, find out the business side of it, learn that part of it, and learn the part of dealing with parents and everything else that goes with it and the kids. She did that. She went out, got a job in Waunakee, Wisconsin, at a dance studio, was there for several years. The local high school at the time was looking for a head coach for their dance team at Waunakee High School. Amy accepted it, took that on. They had never won state. The first year Amy was there, guess what? They were Division I state champs. So she did very well with that. Shortly after that, Amy came to me and said, "Dad, I think I'm ready to start that dance studio, and I'd like to come back to the area and open it." So, and she said, "I have the name for it." And I really expected Miss Amy's dance studio, something like that. She actually just came back and said, "It has to be Attitude Dance." And I said, why did you come up with that? And she said, "The attitude that is everything with these kids. It has been in all the years she was teaching. when the kids' attitudes are good, everything else falls into place. They're good kids, they're good, they're good students, everything else, and it's worked out real well. So we went in, came up with a business plan. I helped her with it. 2017, she came back. It wasn't easy. As any startup, Amy started the company, and away we went. Did a little rental. I helped her for the first year. She was developing it for the first couple of years, and then COVID hit, which was real great, fun to deal. But she made it through that. There was a dip in her stuff, in her attendance, but Amy hung in there and did it all, and stayed in business and did well with it. So it started to grow back. 2 years ago, Hamilton was at a opening for their dance team for a coach. Amy applied and she got it. And the second year she was there, guess what? I don't know if you know it, but last year Hamilton was Division I state champions in dance. All that being great and said, she obviously learned on the dance side of it and did very well. What I'm most proud of and what I want to talk about real quickly with you today is that the attitude that Amy has and instills in these kids and what's good for this community. The example I will give is the first year or two that Amy was in the dance studio, a group of parents brought their kids, young preteen kids, girls. They wanted to explain, the kids, and they were quite emotional, to explain to Amy the trouble they got into. And basically they told that they had all been caught vaping. Amy agreed that, she goes, that's not really a good thing to be doing. But she actually asked the parents when they were there, I understand it, but why are you bringing him here? And they said, well, they kind of put it on Facebook, and we realized that the vaping they were doing was in the bathroom at your studio. So she said, okay, I got it. I get it. She got the kids together. She explained that will never happen at her dance studio, or they will not be dancing there. She also asked them what they were doing Saturday morning, and they said nothing. And she said, good, because I would like you all to show up here so you can clean the studio. All the parents said, what time? So they were thrilled with that. That's the type of control Amy has, and has the respect for these kids and gets it. The thing is, Amy didn't bring those kids there Saturday. She didn't bring them there to punish them, and she didn't bring them there to clean the studio. If you know young preteen girls, you probably have to clean more after they left than when they were there. But it gave her an opportunity to explain and to meet with these kids for a few hours. They had a good time, but she could explain peer pressure and the consequences of doing stuff like that. They've never had trouble with those kids again, and the parents were thrilled with it. So the attitude she has reflects in the name of her studio that she wants to open. I will say that in all the accolades they've gotten, and as she goes, there's more and more with the competition classes and the competition teams that she has. And now being the coach at Hamilton, they have 26 kids out. They all like being, a part of this, but her dance studio has gone to quite a few of the competition in the state and around. And I will say the biggest thing she's proud of is the actual sportsmanship awards that these kids got. They were in one of the biggest and the largest dance competitions in the Midwest here this last summer at Wisconsin Dells, 4 or 5 days worth of it, studios from all over the state, the Midwest, some bigger, some smaller, the whole bit. They had some good success with a lot of their kids winning some competitions, whatnot, but the biggest competition the biggest thing coming away from there, and the one Amy's most proud of, is that, if you can see this or not, they were given the award for the team with the sportsmanship award, and that's the one she's probably the most proud of, and realize that onto the kids. Last but not least, I will tell you that when the tragedy happened in Waukesha at the Christmas parade, Extreme Dance, one of the dance teams and the little kids that were in it, came up with a fundraiser event where the kids, where all the they were going to dance, and it was a fundraiser for the families of that. Amy quickly got a hold of that team, and her team was part of it. So she's very aware of that type of stuff. It builds character with these kids, and it's moving along. The dance studio has gotten to a point now that where it's back to the growth that it needed a new place, and I'm going to hold my agreement with Amy. She's held up hers, so that's why I'm here today for the investment that we're talking about. I think we all would agree that there's a great vested interest in this for the town of Lisbon and the area and the kids, and the investment of it, and a good attitude for the community. So being said that, leave it up to any questions you might have. But if we had another half an hour, I'd go into the economic impact of this on the community as well, because we've looked at everything.
All right, thank you. Questions from the board?
I don't have any. I don't have any. Thank you.
Doug, do you have any? Chairman, or I guess.
No questions.
And maybe losing you.
We were just going around and asking if there was any questions from the board.
Okay.
I guess we have an offer that will be going into closed session later for. I guess if there's no questions for Mr. Kelly, we can close this item.
Yeah, Mr. Kelly, you can either wait in the waiting room, or Kathy can call you tomorrow with the results of the closed session, or you could call her. We don't know how long the closed session is. There are several items in the closed session, but they're going to give direction to me, the town attorney, and the administrator as to how to respond to your offer. So we'll have clear direction from them tonight. We just don't know what time we'll conclude. It might be best for you to make arrangements to call Kathy in the morning, or have Kathy call you. Kathy, how do you recommend we proceed?
Larry, I've got an appointment. I've got morning meetings until 10. Anytime after 10, you want to give me a call.
I'll give you a call.
All right, sounds great. Thank you.
All right, appreciate the time.
All right.
All right.
The next agenda item is a closed sessions, plural, pursuant to Wisconsin statute 1985 sub E, for the purpose of deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session, more specifically regarding an offer to purchase received from Larry Kelly for parcel within Lisbon Business Park East. And the second one would be for pursuant to statute 19.85 sub E, for the purpose of deliberating or negotiating the purchase of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public businesses whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session, more specifically regarding proposed contract with Land and Stone Products regarding Lisbon Quarry Fund. Do we have a motion to adjourn into closed session for both items? Moved by Supervisor Brahm,
So second.
seconded by Supervisor Beal. And we'll do a roll call vote.
Supervisor Brahm,
Aye.
Supervisor Moonen,
Aye.
Supervisor Plotecker,
Aye.
Supervisor Beal,
Aye.
Chairman Osterman.
Aye.
Hearing 5 ayes, we will now move into closed session on both items.
Is anyone else in Zoom?
Yes.
So we need to put them into the waiting room.
You can put somebody in the waiting.
I never heard that before.
I didn't.
It's like the doctor's office. You don't,
Yeah, you know.
All right.
It's 21:35 hours. We're back in open session. I will make a motion to authorize admin staff to prepare counter offer and have the chair sign it.
I second.
Motion made by Supervisor Moonen, seconded by Beal. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. I'll also make a motion to approve the letter of agreement between Land and Stone Products and the town of Lisbon and allow the town chair to sign.
I'll second it.
Motion made by Supervisor Moonen, seconded by Plotecker. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Next item is adjournment. Motion by Supervisor Beal,
I'll second it.
seconded by Plotecker. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And motion carries 5-0.
Out at 9:37.
Out at 9:37.
Thank you,
Good night.
Joe. Good night.
Picture that everybody was looking at, and I thought, where is it?
It's a nice looking building.
It is.